that criticizing the extremist government of Netanyahu over their policies in Gaza is not anti-Semitic. One can criticize the government of Israel for their policies without being anti-Semitic. This amendment makes it clear that it is not anti-Semitic to oppose the Netanyahu-led war effort that has killed more than 50,000 people and wounded over 116,000, 60% of whom are women, children, and the elderly. Making that point is not anti-Semitic. It is not anti-Semitic to criticize Netanyahu's war machine that has damaged or destroyed 2/3 of all structures in Gaza, including 92% of the housing units. It is not anti-Semitic to speak out against the extremist Israeli government for not allowing a single shipment of aid into Gaza in over 2 months, 62 days and counting. To point this out is not anti-Semitic. It is the truth. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment.
Senator Hassan.
Thank you. Just briefly, Mr. Chair, on Sanders' Amendment 2, I will say that this amendment doesn't necessarily reflect the words that I would use in describing the full picture in Gaza. But just saying these words doesn't make you an anti-Semite. And so while I continue to remind people that this war would end if Hamas would put down its arms, we do have a First Amendment in this country that protects the freedom of speech. Thank you.
So, Senator Murphy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the Senator's amendment, and it speaks to, I think, a really important issue in the underlying bill. The author of this definition has testified publicly that he never intended for the definition that ended up in statute to include the litany of examples that are offered as part of the guidance on how to implement this definition. This is really important because if you read these examples, which are going to be incorporated by law into this new definition, it absolutely opens up the possibility that criticism of Israel, for instance, suggesting that there is discrimination or bias against Palestinians connected to decisions that the government is making as actions or speech that could ultimately cause your federal funding to be in jeopardy. If you argued that there was bias or discrimination inherent in an exercise of the U.S. government, you would not be held liable, you would not be at risk of losing your federal funding. But under this definition, which includes the examples, there is a real potential that First Amendment protected speech, criticism of Israel, the policies of Israel, will end up getting you in trouble and putting your federal funding at risk. So I wish we'd listened to the author of the definition. The author of the definition would support the definition itself as being complete and total enough in order to protect against anti-Semitism on campus. The reason that many of us are having trouble with this bill is because of the incorporation of the examples that were never, ever intended to become law and will just make this definition very confusing for an administration or courts to ultimately interpret and administer.
There are 11 examples that are listed that could be anti-Semitism. One of them says that claiming the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Well, what if I repeat that Netanyahu says that Israel is a Jewish state? Well, Jewish is a race, and if he says it's a Jewish state, just by repeating Netanyahu, could I be guilty of anti-Semitism? So, the thing is there are questions, there are valid questions that people ask. So if you're a settler on the West Bank and you're Jewish, you get to vote in the Israeli elections. If you're Arab and you live on the West Bank, you don't. So is that fair, or is that me condemning, the citizenship or making allegations that are going to be, limited by this bill? So these are really important, and this is really the main objections that have come to this. If we did a standard sort of, we condemn anti-Semitism, it'd probably be passed with everybody voting for it. But instead, we're listing all these things that open Pandora's box, and realize that the police are behind this. The Department of Education has police. You may not know this, but the Department of Education actually has armed police. So they can send people to the campus to police this type of speech. And, seriously, it is actually advocated by the current government of Israel that it be a Jewish state and always remain a Jewish state. That is a racial statement. That's not my statement. That's their statement. So is it going to be disallowed by this bill for a student to say that on campus?